Thank you. My name is Neira Nalic. I come from Bosnia and Herzegovina, and my question is to Belgium and Slovenian representatives when it comes to encouraging social entrepreneurship. And my two questions. How will you attract social investment vehicles? I mean, if you want to encourage businesses to be socially responsible, and you want them you want to encourage them to either employ people that are not employed at the moment, but they still need an investment, how will they grow? I mean, how will Slovenian businesses be encouraged to actually become socially responsible if they can't pay dividends or attract investments? So that's the major question, actually. So how will you, not only NGOs becoming registered to do what they're supposed to do anyway, or really employ people, but actually how will you encourage business to do it? Same question to Belgium, really.
Okay, hvala. Gospod Slapner.
Ja, v uvodu je ministrica za gospodarstvo, gospodar Radić že omenila.
Madam Radić already pointed out in her introduction that the Act also provides for the fact that the Ministry of the Economy will set up a special fund that will provide for seed capital and to provide loans at affordable interest rates. The Minister already pointed out that existing support structures will be adjusted and adapted for social companies. And in doing so, we will provide support that will be crucial for social enterprises. But I believe that a representative from the Ministry of Labour will also point out that the Ministry has set up a number of projects based on the European Social Fund, and these projects will yield results, and this also means that more and more individuals from entrepreneurship will go to social entrepreneurship. Thank you very much.
As from Belgium, as the State Secretary mentioned, we have a system of VIT reduction, but the principle is that they stay in an economic environment. So one way or another, they have to provide their own financial means, which might be subsidized in the beginning. So whenever we have a system to help them, it's getting lesser and lesser to a certain moment where they have to be in balance also on an economic level. If you don't do that, well, you are merely into social organizations, and here, as we talk about social entrepreneurship, you have to make the combination possible. Yeah.
Okay. Hvala lepa. Še gospod Damjano Košir bi prosil, če lahko dopolni.
I believe that it is very important how these measures are devised for 2012 and 2013. It will all depend on how the ministries will develop their policies and how the ministries will also respond to this call to devise relevant measures. As has been pointed out, in addition to financing measures, we also need marketing measures and training. When it comes to ongoing pilot projects, the Ministry has been providing funds from the European Social Fund, and these projects have been co-financed within the ceilings of the European Social Fund. So focus is on training, education, and salary grants. But once these projects expire, we'll also have a window of opportunity to make an analysis to take stock of the advantages, disadvantages of these projects, and we will also take all these lessons into consideration when formulating a new call for proposal. And we'll think about any additional support.
Tamle gospod v četrti vrsti je še želel postaviti vprašanje.
Lep pozdrav vsem. Jaz sem Teo Petričevic z Hrvaške, pa bom poskušal kar v slovenščini, če bo šlo. Če ne, pa potem pa na angliščini. Imam kar precej vprašanj, ampak...
I shall attempt to put my question into Slovenian. All 4 questions are addressed to Tadej Slapnik, who presented the Social Entrepreneurship Act. The first question is as follows. Many discussants talked about social economy and social entrepreneurship in their presentations. Within 1 minute, could you please explain me how all these 2 concepts are defined within your act? Then second question. There are 12 criteria within this act. How many criteria have to be complied with by a social company? Then you talk about the equality of membership and members, but on the other hand, you also talked about limitations when it comes to profit distributions of social companies. I would like to learn why is it impossible for members to decide on distribution and why this is stipulated in the Act? Or is it possible to define the distribution of profit within the articles of association by these companies? And the fourth question, does the Act envisage to measure the activities of social companies? Will you use balance sheets? Will you have auditing? What mechanisms will be employed? Thank you very much. I will start with the last question. So when it comes to auditing mechanisms and accounting standards, the Act has certain mechanisms through bylaws and in cooperation with responsible authorities for auditing in the Republic of Slovenia. This will be done by the end of this year when this Act enters into force. So all accounting standards will be put forward because we know that social companies have different methods. When it comes to the equality of members, the issue is as follows. It was in fact impossible to have specific provisions to include all possible scenarios and examples. There are many reasons, because we are dealing with different types of social companies, and of course it was impossible to envisage every practical example, and it was impossible to therefore devise these relevant provisions. Therefore, we have huge expectations from bylaws. And of course, every entity and every initiator will be given an opportunity to define this in the Articles of Association, as you have pointed out as well. When it comes to the initiatives to date, all entities were obtained information when it comes to registration, and we have learned that there have been many practical difficulties because this in fact is a new frontier in Slovenia. Therefore, if our Act needs certain amendments, this is in fact possible by the end of this year. As for the principles and criteria as such, all criteria have to be complied with, but we don't have a scale enabling us to say we will verify whether this criteria has been fully met or not. So this, in fact, is not a criteria which should exclude or prevent a certain company to register. There are principles and criteria as such, but then we have the Articles of Association and the Founding Act, which has to be annexed. And then we can verify whether all these criteria have been incorporated. When it comes to the difference between the social entrepreneurship and social economy, social economy is a very broad framework concept which was not fully incorporated by our Act. We focused on social entrepreneurship When defining and devising the Act, we also touched upon this broad concept, yet it needs to be said it was not defined as such. Because we said this is the first step, we are opening up this field of social entrepreneurship in Slovenia by adopting this Act, and we do expect that we will upgrade this Act and that we will use the entire spectrum of social economy and available tools.
Hvala lepa. Gospa Zdenka Kovač je imela vprašanje.
Mrs. Zdenka Kovač wanted to put one question. In fact, I don't have a question, but just let me highlight one aspect and let me respond to two initiatives, or rather two questions which were put. First, when it comes to funding, i.e. how to promote companies to become more socially responsible so that they focus more on social entrepreneurship methods and paths, if I understood your question correctly. Here we have representatives from the government and parliament, and it is only appropriate to address the partnership aspects between social companies, NGOs, the government and parliament on their way to social entrepreneurship. Yet, let me point out that all good practice examples in the global sphere reveal that it is even better to introduce partnership models between profit-driven methods, social entrepreneurs, and private sector. Therefore, when devising a future strategy, we need to bear in mind that we need to, in fact, promote socially responsible companies in Slovenia and the region as a whole, that they are involved and they participate in developing social companies. There are three methods. They could purchase such products, they can acquire these services, then they can offer advisory and consulting, their managerial services, which are made available to these companies, and then there is a third option. They can become the so-called business angels when it comes to developing socially responsible companies. I believe this partnership is the biggest challenge ahead of us in the future, if we really want for this model to be integrated within the society as a whole. In relation to your second question, how to define social economy, we had a very heated debate. This has been already highlighted by Tadej. We were thinking whether we might define cooperative models or cooperatives as such, because this is one of the elements within this open method which was adopted. But in fact, we adopted the model used by the European Commission when defining social economy. Thank you very much.
Tamle ena roka in potem še dve roki.
My name is Tomasz, and I come from the Institute of Social Incubators, and I have many commonalities with Mr. Chornogoj, but I will talk to him later. I have a question for Madam Košir and Mr. Slapnik, a technical question. Madam Košir, you did point out that there will be a special council in the government, including representatives of NGOs, and I would just like to know what are the criteria that will be fulfilled when selecting these two representatives? Well, there's no key, there are no criteria, since it will have to be innovative, but I do believe that we will be able to come to an agreement. Thank you very much. So when it comes to selecting two NGO representatives, we have a standardized method of appointment. What might be difficult is when selecting representatives from social enterprises, but we will no longer have NGO representatives, so there might be some changes and modifications in this respect. So everything is preset, and I believe that the whole approach is very open, so there won't be any problems. Thank you very much for providing us with more info. Now, just to focus on this point, I believe that NGO Center has a procedure to appoint NGOs, and it also has a procedure to provide proposals. But when it comes to social entrepreneurship and social enterprises, of course, the Act has provisions in this respect. So, for instance, an association needs to be set up and it has to be representative with relevant representatives. More requests for the floor. I'm Janine. I'm from an NGO. What Mr. Chernogoy has pointed out is to my liking. I would like to know if your services are free of charge and if we can benefit from them, because I believe that you could provide us huge assistance in this respect. Well, when it comes to this project, the registration will be free of charge and the services offered within the project will be free of charge. But it remains to be seen what happens later. We would like to have free of charge services in the future as well, but we need a donor for that. But in large part, services should be free of charge. So if you want to post social enterprises to consultants, this might not be free of charge. Thank you very much for this answer. I'm Alenka Stupar. I come from that institute, and I have a question for Madam Koshir. I would like to know if the measures will follow a comprehensive concept of entrepreneurship, meaning will they be focused on supporting the whole path, so the idea and its implementation, because we know that these measures are partial in nature and they are focusing on an activity, but sometimes the implementation of the whole project cannot be achieved. Answer: I believe that it is crucial that we need to set up a support environment so that a whole project will be implemented from the beginning to the very end. So we will do our best to design these projects to be as integrated as possible, but when it comes to measures between 2012 and 2013, I just want to point out that this also depends on the willpower and financial means of other relevant ministries. Thank you very much for this answer. I am Gorana Doshar. I'm an entrepreneur. So I am in a classical commercial company. I would like to know the following. Have you been thinking about the fact that social enterprises could also show that they are of social substance, so that this would also attract other investors. Thank you very much. Regrettably, I didn't point out this in my presentation. This is also defined in the Act. When you gain a status and when you are registered, you are given a label, social enterprise. Thank you very much.
At
the back, close to our interpreting booth, we saw a hand being raised. Dusan Kalužarcaj, Developing Human Resources. I have a question for Mr. Chernigoy. You talked about a number of aspects within your incubator, one being providing training to social entrepreneurs, if I understood your presentation correctly. Have you already developed programs which are made available, which can be downloaded as well? Before launching your incubator, have you seen any networking activities in Slovenia? I believe that at the beginning we heard that there have been many training sessions organized in Slovenia in relation to social entrepreneurship. For the future, do you envisage any similar projects? Will this also be addressed to the Ministry of Labour? Will you integrate local environment in relation to the support network and activities which are already in place in Slovenia? And of course, do you envisage for access being provided free of charge? This has already been put by one previous discussant. Yes, well, the portal is already in operation. Contents in relation to training have so far been empty. They have not been yet fully developed, but you can already register. There are certain events advertised, so this is a test version. We will have lectures, PowerPoint presentations, which can be downloaded. There are about 50 slides, so that you have basic ideas in relation to different areas presented. And then we refer you to literature, and then the third sector is the so-called personal assistant. Yes, we are familiar with the concepts devised to date in Slovenia, but we weren't engaged in any networking activities, but I believe this might be beneficial, especially if this portal and incubator will still be in operation. And of course, we are open to networking possibilities. Our attempts, well, everything started with our initiatives forwarded to the state. We were not successful. Then financial support, not just financial support, but also result presentation. And then new initiatives are welcome as well. We have been quite disappointed, and we don't have ambitious hopes for the future. Our faith can be similar to the fate of different European projects which end up in drawers, and these are studies which are not read by anyone. Thank you very much. If I may intervene, when you organized a conference, I was also a speaker, and then you were in mid-stages of this project. I fully endorse you. I believe that this should be left to the competence of the Ministry of the Economy, which should promote such environment. This is its role, and I believe that some initiatives will be embraced as well. When initiating this act, we wanted to introduce a provision so that we would have a hybrid form of organization as such. We realized that the state doesn't have requisite expertise, so that we should include a concept of existing knowledge. This is not in place, which is why this was not incorporated within the Act. We wanted to have a mixed organization, but it was impossible to provide for this option in the Act. But we said that the state might provide funding to support such activities, and I do believe that this strategy, which is in the pipeline, will envisage this opportunity, that in fact the Ministry of the Economy will utilize all the necessary expertise to date. Thank you very much. No hands have been raised. We need to conclude our session in a minute or two. I would like to